Hey, how's it going guys? My name is Aylwood and today we are looking at Veer, a new game just recently released on Steam, and to answer the ultimate question as always, is it worth your time? So, Veer is a single-player, indie fantasy puzzle platformer. Set completely in some sort of extremely large desert temple, you'll be tackling the many interesting platforming challenges, manipulating the forces of gravity, and using the very intricate distance teleportation mechanic to get past the many various puzzles this game has to offer. So, aesthetically, I love the very minimalist look of the game the devs have decided to go with. Everything in the game is so clean and simple, I can't get enough of it. Yes, some may argue that it is the easiest way to design games due to less production time required, but if I ever had to choose between simple or complex designs in a game, I'd go simple every time. Colours used in general are quite dark, yet quite vibrant at the same time, to give the game that dark, ancient, toomy feel. And no, not Urban Dictionary's meaning of the word toomy. Textures and detail are very nice. Things like stone walls, tapestries and carpets all look very realistic but are quite heavily copy and pasted, obviously because of the game's simple theme, which isn't an issue at all. Lighting effects are by far this game's best visual assets. Plenty of realistic shadow effects, warm glows and fancy illumination that really does bring the dark stone halls to life. It would have been a shame that your character doesn't cast any kind of shadows, but judging by the amount of lighting effects per stage, it would look a bit too complicated, so good choice not including them. Other lighting effects like your character, lightning bolts, teleportation particle residue and more are all good quality and look very nice. Bit of a shame you can't truly appreciate them though, as your camera is always going to be zoomed out, but good regardless. The game has literally no ground clutter present whatsoever to maintain that simplistic look. The UI is non-existent, which I always prefer, and some of the more distant background designs look brilliant and really make some of the stages look huge in size. Level layouts are fine. They can be a bit too long on some stages, which you can't zoom out far enough to see fully, but the majority are just right. Character designs are meh, they're alright. And by characters, I mean literally your playable character and the predicted position version of yourself. Very bog standard, simple animations that don't look very realistic when doing pretty much everything. Changing direction is plain, jumping and falling are way too gentle and lack any kind of weight, but I suppose general running and the doppelganger effects are okay. Big opportunity missed there, to be honest. I get that most people will play the game fully zoomed out, so the majority won't really appreciate the character's animations, but that's no excuse. A very realistically detailed main character with simple designs on everything else would have looked amazing and would have given considerably more character to your character. Overall though, a pretty good attempt at a minimalist visual look. The OSTs in Veer match the game's visuals perfectly. Simple, distinct and toomy. Each track has a very long, drawn out background sound with added smooth, distinct reverb sounds to give each track a calm, slow, yet sometimes quite tense feel that fits the entire game perfectly. When I first started playing, I thought that there was only one OST in the entire game, but as you start to progress stages, there are very impressive transitions between tracks that I literally didn't notice at all. It's not until I took my focus away from puzzle solving that I actually noticed a new track playing. Impressive stuff. There are of course no boss tracks as there are no boss fights in the game, but for the tracks they do have, I was impressed with the sound quality for such simple OSTs. Everything else sound related is good as well. Footsteps on different textures, doors opening and nearby pylon sounds are all immersive and high quality. If the characters' visuals were much better, added vocal sounds like grunts and groans would have been brilliant though. Now for the gameplay. So Veer doesn't have any difficulty options to choose from. It is what it is whether you like it or not, just like every good game should be. It does however have a speedrun version of a stage after the stage has already been completed, which is pretty much time trial to get the best possible time you can. The lore in Veer is literally non-existent. Not that you would need story for a puzzle game like this, but at least a general plot would have been nice. At a guess though, your character would seem to be on some sort of quest or pilgrimage to prove their skills within this temple, due to the similar people standing just outside the temple and judging by your character's general appearance. But just speculation, so who knows. When you first start the game, you're not given any kind of training, opening cutscene or dialogue intro of any kind. You just simply start right outside the desert temple. On your way in, you're given a few snippet tips on your controls and how the general game works, but due to the game's pretty simple gameplay, it's not needed anyway. Speaking of controls, as your standard platformer, you have the ability to move left, right and jump. But specifically to Veer, you can also fire lightning bolts, lock onto targets, hide/show your predicted position self, and on the later stages, spawn pylons at your current location. Your lightning is definitely your most used ability. When fired at a pylon, you will be teleported to the same relative position to another matching pylon. This is pretty much the game's main core mechanic. Due to this, pylons will usually come in sets of 2, obviously, and also come in various colours for you to tell which pylons are paired. Your lightning can also be used to activate things like gravity switches and pylon switch cubes. Lock on is obviously for targeting any of the mentioned objects while moving. Your predicted position self is purely for assistance when puzzle solving, not really needed at the start, but after stage 30 I didn't turn it off once. And finally, you can spawn a set of 2 pylons that are linked together, but bear in mind spawning a third will replace the first one you placed, which is a huge part of puzzle solving. Other gameplay mechanics like walking on red skateboard ramps will change the gravity accordingly, but may induce motion sickness if spammed. You die in the game from falling into darkness and touching the black clouds around certain stages, and some stages have a combination foreground/background stage to spice things up a bit as well. Everything else like moving pylon tricks, distance estimations and actually solving the puzzles comes with practice. And I'll be honest, I didn't get confident with the game's mechanics as fast as I hoped, winging it most of the time around stages 15 to 30. And as I mentioned, there are no boss fights, no combat, not even other NPCs in general. It's just you and your predicted position self to keep you company. I didn't like that a few puzzles in the game are actually solved with what I personally would call a soft exploit. Certain things like teleporting mid-gravity switching or cheesing the mechanics seemed like actual resolution methods to some of the harder puzzles. One puzzle I was stuck on for a whole 70 minutes. After all that time, I found I could get around it by teleporting mid-gravity, which I feel shouldn't be a thing. I'll be honest, I'm not a huge puzzle game fan, and I get thinking outside the box, but when out of the box means thinking of resolution methods that are just on the boundary of what I would consider outside of the game's general physics rules, I did have a hard time. I also didn't really like the fact that I have the ability to place pylons anywhere I liked. I feel it gives me too many options, responsibility and pressure on my puzzle solving, especially when you die halfway through a stage and forget where you put them in the first place to get to where you were. I much prefer a specific resolution method to puzzle platformers rather than allowing me to overthink coming up with my own. So for the ultimate question, is it worth your time? If you're a puzzle platformer master looking for some intricate, out-of-the-box, fresh meat, Veer is the game for you. If you're not so confident, you may find the later puzzles to be a bit too difficult. I'm going to give this game a 3.5 star or 63 out of 100. 2 things I'd recommend they change straight away. Make the start and finish doors different colours to easily distinguish the two, and force a camera zoom in on your character when you're going through doors to force players to appreciate the visuals for a second or two. The funny thing is, I didn't even manage to complete Veer. I managed to get to stage 41, which I'm proud of. But in the end, I give it a go, but unfortunately I had to stop. Now personally, I consider myself a man with at least a basic level of intelligence, but when it comes to Veer, the game is definitely good, but I feel I personally lacked something. Whether it be incredible out-of-the-box thinking ahead consistently, or maybe just puzzle game persistence or patience. Then again, it could be all 4. I feel I don't get adequate satisfaction from solving puzzles in games like this, and if anything, get more annoyed once I figured it out. Either because of my error, or the puzzle resolution was a bit too out of the box to notice, which in Veer's case was mostly the latter. The score I've given the game is definitely lower than I feel it should be, but due to the reasons mentioned with some resolution methods feeling a bit too out of the box, bordering soft exploit, it did put me off a bit and slowly made me lose patience towards the end. Put me in front of New Game +++ Dark Souls, Insanity Mode Mass Effect, or WoW Proving Grounds, and it's all good. But I'll say it again, Veer for me is just a bit too out of the box. But for a game that costs £2 on Steam, would definitely recommend it to any of you confident puzzle platformer masters out there. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more games I'll be reviewing each week, and the word "to me" I mentioned at the start of the video, I put a link to the Urban Dictionary meaning for those curious. Highly recommended. But as always, all the best guys, take care.